Welcome to CCH, especially if you're new today. So we do this thing every single week where we call it family time, and it's where we put a question up on the board, and you go talk to somebody that you've never talked to before, and you ask them that question, and then you talk about it. So do we have a question for the week? So the question is, which would you eat for an entire year, pancakes or waffles?
Hello? Hey, everyone, if you want to come back, we're going to continue worshiping. Kyle, what was your answer? That's a bad answer. Waffles, because they have little pockets for syrup and for butter and for other stuff. They're just better. And you can make sandwiches out of waffles. You can do pancakes. Now the darkness fades into new beginnings as we lift our eyes to a hope beyond. All creation waits with an expectation to declare the reign of the Lord our God. We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for the risen one is overcome. For every fear is an empty grave, for the risen one is overcome. And the silence breaks in the name of Jesus, as the heavens smile and the earth respond. Creation shouts with the voice of triumph to declare the reign of the Lord our God. Not be moved when the earth gives way, for the risen one is overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave, for the risen one
The head that once was crowned with thorns is crowned with glory now. The Savior nailed to wash our feet, now at His feet we bow. The one who bore our sin and shame, now robed in majesty. The radiance of perfect love now shines for all to see. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. The fear that held us now gives way to Him who is our peace. His final breath upon the cross is now alive in me. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. The tomb where soldiers watched in vain was borrowed for 3 days. His body there
God has robbed the grave. Our God has robbed the grave. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. God, we thank you for this Tuesday that we get to come here and gather and sing praises in your name. God, I pray that you will speak through, I don't know if it's Travis or Jordan talking tonight, but whoever it is talking, God, I pray that you speak through them and give us the ears to listen and to hear and to receive what you have to say through them, God. In your name I pray. Amen. You guys may be seated.
So I am super excited about this new series that we're doing, this thing that we're starting this week, talking about love, sex, and dating, because every one of us constantly thinks about love, relationships, and sex in some manner or another. We always do. It's on our mind. It's something that we constantly think about, but it's not something that we often talk about. But before I get started here, I'm excited to talk about what I have for tonight. We have some clipboards that we're going to be passing around, and CCH does this annual banquet every year. That's this really awesome thing where we all get together and we celebrate with our alumni and our supporters that help this ministry happen. And you as the students are always invited to that, but we also want to invite your parents. So if you've never given us your parents' address before, if you have, you don't have to write it down again. It's okay. We don't want to be super redundant, but if you've never given us your parents' address before and you're like, yeah, I think this is something cool that they would like to be invited to, we would love to invite them to that. So just write their address as the clipboard comes around. So now that I've got that out of the way, let's talk about dating. If we're honest, the church hasn't done a super great job addressing this whole deal of love, sex, and dating because it's awkward, right? It's uncomfortable and it's often messy to talk about these kind of things, but we're in college and awkward is kind of our thing, so awkward is fun, and at least I think it's fun, so I just want to embrace it. We're going to dive into love, sex, and dating over the next few weeks. We're going to start with probably the most awkward phase of the whole ordeal, the entire relationship process, and I think that's dating. What a fun, awkward time of our lives, right? I think dating is super fun to talk about. Some of us actually probably cringe a little bit, though, when we think about it and we look back on our entire dating history. Whew, I know I have some cringeworthy moments in my own life, but I want to encourage you that it could be more awkward, it could be even worse than it already is. In fact, I have some things I want to share with you. A while back, Jimmy Fallon on his show, I love Jimmy Fallon, I love The Tonight Show. He does a Twitter portion of his show every now and then, and he does hashtags. And he did a hashtag worst first date, and I loved this. I thought it was hilarious. So I just want to share a few of these with you because I think they're awesome. And hopefully it's encouraging to you that you hopefully haven't had a date that's gone quite this poorly before. So remember, these are tweets, so you have to think about the entire story of the night in like 280 characters, but here it is, hashtag worst first dates. She showed up with 5 kids that she was babysitting, and there weren't enough seats, so I had to sit at a different table. He told me he wanted to take me to one of his favorite places, so I dressed up nice, and we went to Bass Pro Shop. He talked about himself all through dinner, then drove me around to show me where all of his ex-girlfriends lived. Yeah, amazing, right? At the end of the night, he leaned in for a kiss, whispering, "Don't be scared if my tooth falls out." Gosh, these are awesome. I forgot how good these were. We were walking outside, and it got kind of chilly, and he said, "I guess I should offer you my jacket," then added, "but then I'd be cold." I took a girl out to karaoke, and she sang "I Will Always Love You" by Whitney Houston, and before she did, she told the crowd, "This is for my ex." Oh. The girl brought a plastic baggie to puke in because she gets nervous on first dates. She used it. Reluctantly, this one's good. Reluctantly went on a blind date through a mutual friend, and halfway through the date, we discovered that we are related. How would you like to be on that one? Oh my goodness. How about this one? Homeboy wouldn't stop putting the chopsticks in his mouth, pretending to be a walrus for 30 plus minutes. Yeah. And finally, as I was leaving, I went in for a hug goodbye. I tripped on the doormat and tackled her into the door. Yeah, good stuff. First dates are just the worst, right? No, it's fun and it's awkward, and I love all of those because it makes me feel a little bit better about my own life. Some of my worst dates don't even come close to that, but some fun moments certainly in my own life as well. But I say we're going to talk about dating tonight, and I'm afraid that some of you might not exactly know what I mean by that, because I feel like relationship words sometimes nobody really has any idea what that means or what phase of a relationship we're actually in when we talk about different things. So I just want to define to you, want to tell you what I mean by that tonight. So here's not how I define dating. If you have been in a relationship for a really long time, if you are nearing engagement or marriage, if you're fully committed to a person, and you want to spend the rest of your life with them, that's not how I'm defining dating. That's not the relationship I'm talking about. And if that's you, that's great. That's awesome. And we're going to have more stuff that pertains more to you in the coming weeks. Hopefully you can glean something from tonight too, because I think there's some really good stuff in here. But know that if you're in a long-term relationship, there's some stuff that's coming down the pipe for you guys later in this series as well. But tonight we're talking about dating. So those who are single in the room, those who have been on a couple of dates and you guys are just starting out, those of you who are trying to determine if you actually want to pursue something further with this other person that you've been hanging out with, those of you who are just kind of getting to know each other, in my mind, that's what dating is. It's going out with somebody, it's getting to know them better, and determining if they are the kind of person you could spend the rest of your life with. That whole process, to me, is dating. I'm going on a date with this person. There you go. And dating, guess what? I've used this word several times. It's awkward, right? It's messy. And honestly, sometimes dating hurts. But it is so good, and it's a good experience to have. So tonight we're just going to embrace the awkward. We're going to embrace this beautiful mess together that we call dating. Now, before we kind of get into all of this, I want to let you know that I'm not going to stand up here and tell you that I have this one perfect formula for dating, and you better do it my way for it to work, because I don't think that's true. Now, I'm married. and my wife is awesome. So obviously I did something right, but do what you want with that. I'm not just the authority on dating. I don't believe there is just one perfect formula for all of this, but I do think there are some principles to do this awkward thing well, to have a good time, and to protect one another's hearts in the dating process. So with all of that in mind, thinking that there's not just one perfect way to do it, I think we see all kinds of different daters. There's the slow movers. That was actually me. These people kind of take forever to make a move with somebody. They kind of just look for somebody specific, and it takes a long time for them to get into a relationship. And then there are these people who I'm going to call the speed daters. They're going on a different date with some new person, like every week or every night, or even on the same night. In fact, I'll actually tell you a short story real quick. I have this friend that I grew up with, and he kind of likes to embellish stories sometimes, so I don't quite know what's always true and what's not, but he was telling me about this first date day that he had one time, and I love this story. He's like, so Jordan, I scheduled 3 dates for the same day. And here's how it went down. I got through date 1 just fine. Everything was good. But here's where he made the mistake. He scheduled dates 2 and 3 at the same place. That's a mistake. So he said, coming out of the movie theater with date 2 and date 3 showed up early, right? So as we're walking out of the theater, I've got her on my arm and we're walking out together, and I'm getting ready to walk her out to the car, and in comes date 3, and we make dead eye contact. And she just stares at me for a minute, and then all of a sudden, she starts yelling at the other girl. And so I just kind of take a step back, and I kind of watch all this unfold, and they start fighting with each other for like 5 minutes, and at one point I just kind of put my hands up and I said, you know what? And I just walked out and left them both there. And I was like, oh my gosh. Now, that is certainly not the best way to go about dating, right? But fast or slow, neither one of those ways is inherently right or wrong. And I actually think there are traps that we can fall into either way, I think. We can kind of fool ourselves into some things. So I kind of want to set this up a little bit, some of the traps that we fall into when we're talking about dating. And the first is actually for the slow movers. So if this is you, if you can identify with that, that's okay, it's a good thing, but here's something that we kind of fall into sometimes. The slow movers can often develop a fear of the messiness of dating. I firmly believe that fear and worry in life actually displays a lack of faith in what we're doing, and a lack of faith in God. And sure, dating is not always going to be the most comfortable experience, but to avoid anything purely because of possible discomfort, I think that closes a lot of doors, and it shows a little bit of a lack of faith. So dating might be awkward at times, and breaking up is sometimes painful. It's often painful. But we can so learn from those experiences. We get to know people, and through dating, we eventually find somebody to share our life with. And so I just want to combat that idea that we shouldn't be afraid of the messiness. And sometimes the mess is good to jump into. It's okay for things to be messy. You grow that way. So even though it might be awkward, it's good to jump in. If you're one of those slow movers that might be a little bit afraid of the things that come with dating, it's okay. It's a good experience. But I think another trap that kind of hits even more people is the finding the one myth. And I firmly believe that. I think it's kind of it's a myth that our society has kind of put together. And this actually impacts both of our slow movers and our speed daters, but in different ways. So just kind of let me explain a little bit. When we begin the process of dating, this is what we often do. When we get to the point of our life where we think we want to go out with somebody, we often like to make a list. And usually it's a rather extensive list of all the perfect qualities that we want to find in a person. And whether we write this list down or not, it's in our heads for sure. We have this list of all these criteria that we think this person has to line up with to be the person that we get to spend our life with. So then we take our list, and when we go out into the dating world, we start to look for the one. The one perfect person who perfectly fits our list. And I hate to burst your bubble if that's what's going on right now, but that person really doesn't exist. So if that's a thing you have going on right now, kind of take your list, tear it up, throw it away. But here's how this affects the slow movers. This list, the one theory. Any person that they might meet that they might be interested in, that they think maybe I could think about asking them out, they're hoping to stack up their list against this person before anything ever happens and figure out if it's someone they can marry before they even begin the process. So they constantly look around and they never quite find somebody who fulfills the requirements of their list, and they never even enter into a dating relationship because nobody ever stacks up. They never date because they never met somebody good enough to date. Now on the flip side, we've got our speed daters, and they can find themselves constantly comparing every person that they date to their list and moving on every time there might be something better. The allure of a person who might fit their list just a little bit better drives them to date more and more people that they can compare to their hopes, their dreams, their goals for a perfect mate. And then when they get caught in this trap, that person can continue to bounce from one person to another, never really engaging in a meaningful relationship because there might be something else that's better out there. Now, I want to clear something up for you right now. What I'm not telling you all to do is to settle. I'm not telling you all to lower your standards and just marry somebody. That's not what I believe in. That's not what I'm telling you to do. But what I am saying is to stop looking for the person who perfectly meets all of your requirements. Because if we're honest with ourselves, your requirements are not always God's requirements. That's not always the person that God has for you. So instead of being on the lookout for one perfect person who matches up perfectly with what you want, you should be searching for the kind of person that God has for you. You should be content with God's design for your partner, with God's best for you. Because God's best for me is certainly better than anything I could have ever imagined for myself. So again, right now, if you have a list, and you know you have a list, take that list, tear it in half, and we're going to move on from there. But you say, okay, Jordan, I've taken my list, torn it in half, I've thrown it away. What am I looking for now? What do I do with dating? Well, I was told growing up that there are really just three criteria when you're looking for somebody to date. And they're these three things. Are they moral? Are they a believer? And are they willing to go out with you? Those are the three. So let me dive into those a little bit further here. Let's just start with are they moral? I think you can take a look at how seriously they take things written in the commandments, and that's a good gauge for how moral they are, or if they have a moral compass. And in case you're unfamiliar with the Big Ten, here they are. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not worship idols. Do not misuse the name of the Lord God. Observe the Sabbath and keep it holy. Honor your parents. Do not murder. That's a good one. Do not steal. Do not commit adultery. Do not give false testimony, so don't lie. And don't covet anyone else's possessions. And I like the way Romans 13 puts this. It's a good measuring stick for these kind of things. It says, owe no one anything except to love each other. For the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. For the commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and any other commandment are summed up in this word, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor, therefore love is the fulfilling of the law. Or maybe we can even boil it down a little bit more, or a lot more, and make it really, really simple. Matthew 7:12, which says, do to others what you would have them do to you. Does this other person live that way? So is the person moral? That's number one. Are they a believer? That's the second thing. 2 Corinthians 6:14 says this. It says, do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness? For men, check this out. In Proverbs 31:30, it's talking about an ideal woman. And it says, charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. So guys, we know what we're looking for. But all of us should be looking for a believer with a fear of the Lord and a relationship with him. So when you're looking at a person, do I see fruit of a relationship with Jesus? And here's kind of how you can know. Jesus kind of lays it out for us. He says in John 15, "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command." So if you see love, if you see obedience, you can see an ongoing relationship with Jesus. But what other fruit should we be looking for? Because I think there's other things that we can see in another person's life that can draw us toward another person. So here's what it says in Galatians 5. It says, "The acts of the flesh are obvious: sexual immorality, impurity, and debauchery, idolatry and witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, and envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like." Now, that is not what we're looking for, right? I didn't reference that verse on accident, but that's not what we're looking for. That's the exact opposite of what we're looking for. So if we can see these obvious things in their life, we can see that that's not the fruit that God has designed. But then Paul continues. The next couple of verses say, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control." Am I saying that you have to go out and you have to find a perfect Christian that displays every single one of these things? No. Because none of those perfect Christians exist. But you should be seeking another person who fears the Lord and who has a growing relationship with him. That's important. And then we finally get to the third criteria, right? Are they moral? Are they a believer? And are they willing to go out with you? Slow movers, track with me here, because this is where the rubber meets the road. At the end of the day, you have to ask this question. You don't get anywhere until you ask this question. You have to ask, "Hey, would you go on a date with me?" And sometimes it's not that simple, I understand. But at the end of the day, you have to ask the question. And then when someone says yes, and we're all shocked when they say yes, you go on a date and you get to know that person better. That's what dating is. So we've reached that point. We know what we're looking for, and we've gotten to the dating point. So how do we honor God in dating? How do we date well? Well, first of all, I think this is a huge one. You have to be honest with who you are. And this is a huge thing, especially on the first date. We're already aware that God tells us not to lie, right? But we so often do in dating experiences, whether we mean to or not, especially on the first date, though. Holy smokes. We walk in and we're on our best behavior. We've got this great smile on. We've got this great face on. No matter how our day was, we're happy to be there. And some people will just agree with anything the other person says so that they can be like, "Wow, we have so much in common." Right? Do you ever see that? Just to hopefully maybe get to the second date. And then that second date might be what the first date was supposed to look like, because and they're not presenting just this perfect, prettied up version of themselves that they've created. I think we honor God when we're honest on those first dates. And we don't lie to the other person when you are who you are. And that's okay. Because if that's somebody that you want to spend your life with anyway, they should get to know you right off the bat. And if they still like you after that first date encounter, then you're doing okay. You're doing well. So be who you are. Be honest about who you are. And then remember to treat the other person for who they are. Remember that when you go on a date, You are on a date with a child of God. So, think about this. For the guys, right? We have this stereotypical, there's a dad sitting on the front porch cleaning his shotgun, right, as you pick his daughter up for a date. Let's take this a step further for a second. What if you have to take her home and drop her off, and you know that that's the Lord sitting on the porch with his shotgun? Think about that for a second, really. You're going to treat her with some respect, right? Because you have no idea what she's going to say to Daddy when she gets home. You're going to honor her. And ladies, it's the same sort of thing. What if you know that the guy you're on a date with is going to go home and tell his dad everything that just happened on that date, everything about the woman that he was just on a date with, and that dad is the Lord? You're going to be kind and encouraging to him, right? Even if you don't necessarily want to go on a second date with him, you're still going to treat him well. Now, I don't want to backtrack here. This is not to say that you have to be the perfect little boy or girl and you don't get to know each other at all, but treat each other as children of God. Treat each other well, and that's honoring to the Father. Then I think we can stay focused on what dating is actually for, what I've talked about earlier. I think that honors God when we do dating well that way, when we stay focused on what dating actually is. Dating is getting to know another person, and the process of determining if you want to move into relationship with them. It's to figure out if this is the kind of person God might have for you to share your life with. That's the process of dating. And I think God designed relationships to be fun. He didn't design them to be stressful and worrisome all the time. So have fun. Remember that dating is supposed to be fun. Remember why you're on the date, and don't take it so seriously all the time. It's supposed to be a good time. But finally, I think there's another way that we can honor God in our dating relationships, and I think we honor God when we put up guardrails. And I think this is important to talk about. It's so honoring to our Father when we stick to our convictions. So I think it's really good to know ahead of time, going into a date, where the train should stop on that date, and then set up guardrails to ensure that you keep that in place. It's really important. I believe that God's best sex is designed for marriage, and that it's totally worth waiting for that intimacy with a person. That's not to say that if that has already happened for you, that everything's broken and everything's ruined, because I think God can certainly provide healing in that. And that's amazing too. But I do believe that God's best sex is designed for marriage, and it's worth the wait. So I think it's honoring to Him when we keep ourselves out of compromising situations. When we set up those guardrails to keep ourselves from getting in that situation in the first place. So I think if you think about all those things, we can honor God in our dating. Because oftentimes we don't think about that, right? How do I honor God while I'm on this date? But that's definitely what we should be thinking about. Now let's move one step further, right? How about moving to the next step of relationship status? How do we know for sure that we want to put in a relationship with this person on our Facebook page? How do we know when we've reached that point? I think it's all about seeking wisdom. I think there's part of us that usually kind of knows, but I think there's a little bit of inner turmoil for us too, because that's a big decision. It really is. So I think seeking wisdom is huge. I think first you can seek wisdom from God. It's always good to seek God's wisdom in every matter. And dating is no exception. Because if you think about dating, even though it doesn't seem like super significant, dating is the entry into the relationship field. But dating affects both people. Dating can lead to a more committed relationship, which can lead to marriage, which is for the rest of your life. So I think God would very much like to impart His wisdom to you in dating, because that can affect the rest of your entire life. So when you reach the point of deciding whether to move into a deeper relationship, it's good to seek God's wisdom through prayer. And I believe He will help guide you through that process and grant you wisdom as far as, yeah, you should enter into a relationship with this person. Get to know them better, even better than you already are. James 1:5 says that if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. So seek wisdom from God in that process. I think we can also seek wisdom from others, and sometimes this is hard. But I firmly believe that God can impart his wisdom through other people when we ask. Oftentimes, we just don't want to ask for fear of what we might hear. First of all, that should be a red flag already. If I think I might hear something that I don't want to, so I don't ask, maybe there's something going on. But I want to share with you a story from Judges. And in Judges, there's this guy, Samson, the mighty Samson, who's an awesome dude. Like, if you read through the story of Judges and you see Samson's story, he's pretty crazy. He does a lot of cool stuff. Kills a lot of people, but Samson's a pretty cool dude. But he's got this woman problem, women problem. And in Judges 14, Samson sees this woman. She's a Philistine woman. And he comes home and he tells his parents, "Go get her for me as my wife." First of all, I don't think I could walk in and tell my parents, "Go do anything." But this is Samson, so he walks in and he says, "Go get this woman for me as my wife." And Samson's parents don't approve. Like, why can't you find somebody from among our own people? And they kind of push back a little bit, but Samson isn't having any of it, right? So here's the Spark Notes version of Judges 14. Samson, as he goes to meet his wife, to see his wife and throw a big party, he makes this bet with these Philistines, and they decide to use his wife against him in the bet, right? He's told them this riddle for 30 sets of clothes, which doesn't really seem like that great a bet anyway. It's 30 guys, 30 sets of clothes. We just get one set of clothes each. That's not that great. But he makes this bet with them, and they decide to use his wife against him because she's a Philistine. She's going to side with them. So she spends her time over the next week. I love this, that it says, for the next 7 days, she cried and wailed until Samson would tell her the answer to the riddle. So she coaxes the answer out of him, and the Philistines win the bet. And at this double crossing from his wife, Samson gets super angry, and he goes and kills 30 other guys from a neighboring country to bring their garments over to give to the 30 guys that just won the bet. And then he storms off home. And after he heads home, his wife is given away to somebody else. He didn't divorce her. He didn't leave her, per se, but she was just given away. Now, if Samson had listened to the wisdom of his parents, he could have avoided the entire situation. Now, God was going to use that situation for something else, because God can redeem any situation, but if Samson had listened, he could have avoided everything. And it's good for us to seek wisdom from those around us. It's good for us to seek wisdom from our parents, from trusted friends, from a mentor, to see what perspective that they might have, not only about just the person, but even just the relationship in general, because they're just going to have a different perspective. They see things a little bit differently. And it's good to hear what other people think, because God can speak through those people. So by seeking wisdom from others, we can make wise choices about when to move into a committed relationship. Now, there's another side to this as well. Because when we're dating, we can move into a committed relationship, but often dating relationships move in the other direction. So, how do we do breakups well? And this is a little bit tougher, but let's talk about breakups a little bit. Now, I like to watch Friends. Does anybody else in here watch Friends? Yay, be proud of yourselves. It's fine. We're not old because we watch Friends. Gosh, but if you've watched Friends, you all know the Ross and Rachel business, right? Gosh, what a horrible, awesome relationship. But Ross and Rachel go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth all the time. But in one of their breakups, they really just blow things up, right? So they break up. Rachel tells Ross that she wants to go on a break, and Ross lashes out by going and finding somebody else and sleeping with her. That's not the way to deal with a breakup. That's very destructive. And for the rest of their time interacting with one another, that overshadows their entire relationship. And you often find Ross screaming, "We were on a break." But that's not the way to do breakups well, right? But breakups happen a lot. It comes with the territory of dating, and breakups are often messy, but they're going to happen if we enter into this dating realm. In every relationship that doesn't end in marriage, which I looked up a lot of different statistics out there, but the best I found is that most people, on average, are going to have 8 to 12 different relationships before they find the person that they're going to marry. So, 8 to 12 relationships. All of those are going to end in a breakup. So in every relationship that doesn't end in marriage, there comes a point at which one person realizes that they don't want to spend the rest of their life with that other person. And there's a breakup. Now, that's not wrong. I want everybody to know that right off the bat. That's not wrong for that person to feel that way. That's not bad. And we have a tendency in our society to make that person the villain in this love story, but that's really not the case. But that side is not often handled well. So it's easy to pin the blame on that person and make that person the bad guy or the bad girl, however you want to phrase that. But I actually think that both sides are not often handled well, but we'll take this one at a time here. So how do we break up well? When you are the person who knows that the relationship shouldn't go any further, how do you end a dating relationship well? Wow, that's a touchy question, right? Again, I will reiterate here that I am not the absolute authority on one way to do dating or breakups for that matter, but here is what I believe to be true. If you're on this side of the breakup, first, don't drag your feet, because to do so is to be deceptive. Maybe you don't view it that way. Maybe you think you're trying to save this person some hurt, but the longer you wait and you string that person along, the messier the breakup can be. All the time that you continue to be in a relationship with that person when you know it needs to end is really a lie to that person, and it's selfish. And maybe that sounds harsh, but that's really what it is. It's way better for that person, and for you for that matter, to have that conversation when you've made the decision for the sake of the other person and the sake of yourself. To not wait around for a long time before you get to that point. Because there's usually only two reasons to remain in that kind of relationship that you know you're not going to spend the rest of your life with that person. Number one, you're benefiting from that relationship in some way. You're receiving something. Or two, you just don't want to deal with the repercussions of the breakup conversation. You don't want to deal with the discomfort of that. Either way is damaging to the other person and is really purely for your own comfort. So you should have the conversation. Don't drag your feet about it. Second, again, be honest in the conversation. There are so many cliches out there. It's not you, it's me. And I would encourage you to avoid all of those things, because people can see right through those most of the time. What it really boils down to, and you can agree or disagree with me on this, that's fine, but what it really boils down to is that you don't see that other person as one whom you're going to spend the rest of your life with. And that's okay. But most of the rest of what you can say in that moment is fluff. And most people can see through that. Matthew 5:37 says, all you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. I realize you're not being asked a yes or no question in this situation, but I think it applies. Say what you mean and nothing else. If you don't believe that God desires for you to be with that one person for the rest of your life, that's okay. And I think that's okay to tell the other person. Don't be rude about it, but it's good to tell the other person and to be honest about it. Third, I think you can be encouraging in that moment. Maybe this sounds a little contradictory to my previous statement, but it's really not. Because the typical response when you're on the flip side of being broken up with is to ask why. You ask the person why, right? And I think there needs to be a delicacy in how you respond to this question. In Ephesians 4, Paul writes, don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. So while you may not want to spend the rest of your life with that person, and that's okay, the question why is not an open invitation for you to give them a laundry list of everything that you don't like about them or everything that they did wrong. That's not what that is. Instead, I think you can be upfront, like we already talked about, but then also encourage them that There are good qualities about them that drew you to want to pursue a dating relationship with them in the first place. And then speak only what is going to be beneficial to the person that is listening. Now, these things don't necessarily mean that your breakup is going to go super well and super smoothly and everybody's going to be best friends. That's not what I'm saying. But I think they are good guidelines to follow in order to honor God, even in that uncomfortable part of dating that is the breakup. Now there's the flip side as well. We're on the other side. We're being broken up with. I think this is also a real problem sometimes. How do we respond well when we're broken up with? Usually we're not thinking about that. We just want to respond in any way. I'm not going to ask you to be best friends with the person that just broke up with you. I'm not going to tell you to do that. Because any time that anybody has ever told me, I really just want to be friends, I sit on the other side of that and I was like, to be honest, I really don't want to be friends right now. Isn't that true? I'm not going to ask you to be best friends with this other person, but I think we can respond to being broken up with in a manner that allows both people to be encouraged and to move on to other relationships in the future without so much baggage. So first, I think you need to remember your identity. Remember your identity. You are first and foremost a child of God. You are His prized creation. And your identity is not wrapped up in whose boyfriend or girlfriend that you are. It's not wrapped up in whether you have a boyfriend or girlfriend at all, for that matter. You have been purchased, you have been redeemed by the blood of Christ, and now get to call Him friend, and you get to call the Lord God Father. That's your identity by the grace of God. So you are not a product of some relationship. You are a product of God's amazing gospel. Second, I think we need to remember where our fulfillment comes from. If your fulfillment is in a relationship, or if it's in another person, you are always, always going to be let down. That is true of any relationship. Even when you get to marriage, if you are putting all of your fulfillment in the other person, they will let you down at some point. That always happens. Our fulfillment comes from God alone and being in relationship with Him. Now, Travis is actually going to hit on this a lot more next week as we talk about becoming the person that God wants us to be in these kind of relationships. But what this boils down to is that our relationship with God is the only one that is truly fulfilling. Not any dating partner or any relationship that we have on this earth. Third, when you're on the other side of this breakup, avoid gossip and slander of that person. James 4:11 says, "Brothers and sisters, do not slander one another. Anyone who speaks against a brother or sister or judges them speaks against the law and judges it. And when you judge the law, you're not keeping it, but you're sitting in judgment on it." So when you speak judgment against that other person, when you condemn them for what they've done to you, you are really only bringing judgment back on yourself. But it doesn't just impact you either. Again, this goes back to simply being selfish. It feels good to let out our frustration and judgment against the other person, right? It feels good for us. It feels good to tear them down to other people sometimes. But here's what it says in Proverbs 16. It says, "A perverse person stirs up conflict, and a gossip separates close friends." So you've been broken up with. And the tendency is to just rip apart that other person. To find someone to confide in and just tear them apart. But that only seeks to escalate their hurt, which provides no healing to either person and really only causes separation. So in order for both of you to move on, you have to let go of any bitterness that you might have. Because bitterness takes root in our lives and can stay there for a long, long time, and it impacts our relationships from that point on with any other person. We often end up lashing out and hurting other people. But in Hebrews 12 it says, "See to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many." Forgiveness opens the door to healing. And more often than not, That person hasn't even sinned against you, actually. You're just offended about the situation. And in order to move on, you have to let go of that bitterness for the health of both people involved. Now, for all of us in here, if I'm asking us to date other Christians, right? There are probably going to be dates that happen between people in this room. And they won't be perfect, and dating relationships will end. So I want to just go ahead and address that elephant in the room, right? Your dating relationship or breakup should never take precedent over what God is doing in your life or in another person's life. So again, I'm not going to ask you to be best friends after a breakup, but I don't think any of us should think for 1 second that your love life is bigger than what God wants to do through you or through that other person. And don't allow that, your feelings, to get in the way. Breakups are hard, and they're messy, but both parties can move on, they can coexist, they can be productive for the kingdom alongside one another. And that's the beauty of reconciliation. So I've been talking about breakups for a while, right? But I want to end this thing on a fun note, right? Because it's happier that way. So I just want to share a little bit of my story, my dating story with my wife, because she's great. So how we met, when I was in college, I was a junior in college before I met my wife. I actually knew her brother, which was weird. He didn't even actually introduce us, but I'd been to their house, and I'd never met her before. Ironic. So we met at this root beer kegger that we throw every year at the beginning of the year, and she came up to me and made some inside joke from her brother about this awful Trojan horse that we had to build on a mission trip, and it was a fun trip and all, but I was like, who are you and why do you know about this horse? That was how we met. That was the beginning of our relationship. And from that point on, we would see each other at CCH, we would run into each other, but neither of us really thought a whole lot about that first encounter. We didn't do anything with that. But the further along we went into that year, I began to notice Carolyn, this woman, and who she was. And she was this amazing servant. She would come on Tuesday nights and get there early, and she would help do things. She would help hand out name tags and all kinds of stuff. And anytime we would do service events, she would be there. She wanted to serve, and it was super attractive to me. She was an amazing woman. I thought she was really, really cool. And she was super cute too, so that was a bonus. She's still super cute. She's awesome. But I could see God working in her life, and I could see the fruit that he was producing through her, and that's what drew me to her. And so we went on this trip called Beach Reach, and I was the mission trip leader that year, and I got to give a fun talk about how you don't start mission trip relationships, because that's not usually healthy, but you see all the good things in a person on a mission trip, and you're super drawn to them, and a lot of times mission trip relationships start, and then they end like 2 weeks later, and it's usually messy. And so I gave this talk about how you shouldn't start a relationship on a mission trip if you become interested in a person, and we went to Beach Reach, and I had another guy that was there with me that was like, hey, are you interested in any girls? Because that's what guys do. We sit down and talk about girls, right? And I lied through my teeth and I said, no, I'm not interested in anybody. I'm not talking to anybody or anything. And 4 days later, we were still on that trip, and I said, Andrew, I gotta talk to you, man. Because I got it bad. It's been 4 days, and I super into this girl, Carolyn. And we talked about it for a while, and I was like, I don't know what to do about this, because I just gave this talk about how you don't start a relationship because of when you're on a mission trip, and what do I do here? Because I have it bad. So I waited 2 weeks. 2 weeks, that's a good rule after a mission trip. And then I asked her out. And we were texting on the phone, and I was super smooth about it, right? We started talking about how we ended up at college, and she asked me, how'd you end up at Trina? I said, well, it's a super long story. Can I take you out for coffee sometime and tell you about it? Thank you. She was so unsuspecting. She was like, yeah, sure, we can go out for coffee sometime. I was like, sometime this week is when it's happening. That's how it was going. So we had our first date, and it was great. And we entered into this dating relationship. She would come over and she would watch Duck Dynasty with me and the people that I lived with in my villa, because that's how we lived. So that was what our dating relationship kind of looked like. And we got to know each other super well that way, and it was really, really fun. And was it super awkward at times? You bet it was, because I'm an awkward person. But it was so great. And the more we got to know each other, the more we fell in love with one another, and we knew that each other was the person that we wanted to spend the rest of our life with. And that ended really well for me. I hope she would say the same thing. I don't know about her. She's stuck with me. So that's where we are. And it was super fun. But dating should be fun, and all aspects of it can be done really well. I think that can be true. Sure, it will be awkward sometimes, but that's okay, and I think we should embrace it. And we can honor God throughout the entire process of dating. Let me pray for us. God, I thank you so much for this opportunity to be together, to spend time with each other, and talk about some things that aren't normally talked about. And God, I think that's good. I think you have some really good stuff for us in your word, some really good guidelines. Even though there's no perfect formula to dating, to relationships, I think, God, you've laid out some things for us to be able to honor you in all relationships, and they'll certainly apply to dating. So God, almost to take to heart all of the things that you lay out there for us, to be honest, to be encouraging, to be respectful, to be loving. And God, help us to date well, to do relationships well, and to just do life alongside one another well. I ask that you would continue to encourage us and build us up in that aspect of our lives. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. to join a SWAT team or a lift group this semester. Our spiritual weapons and tactics teams for guys and our living in faith together groups for women provide the opportunity to grow in your relationship with Christ through sharing life with a small group and diving into accountability with one another. So if you're not involved in one of these groups already this semester, you should contact one of our staff tonight and talk to them about how you can get plugged in.
We need help for Martin Luther King Jr. night on February 2nd at 7 p.m. We need some volunteers to help with the night, so we need about 5 to 6 ushers to help people get to their seats, and after the program there'll be food served, so we need 3 or 4 people to help with that, and I'm pretty sure Deb McHenry will give you free food if you help. So hope you guys can be there, and if you can't serve, it's still going to be a great night, so hope you guys can be there. See you there.
Are you tired of the cold winter, the snow, the ice? Well, doesn't Florida sound awesome this time of year? Our spring break mission trip is taking a trip to Florida, and we'd love for you to come be a part of that. We're going to go down, hang out with college students, serve, love them, share the love of Jesus with college students down in Panama City Beach, Florida. Come talk to me, Elijah, or Mason afterwards to find out more. And actually, there's a meeting for all those going on this mission trip directly after tonight's worship service. So stick around, we got some info.
Well, my friend Morgan's actually going to come up here right now, and she's going to tell you about what's happening with our weekend hangout this weekend.
This weekend for our weekend hangout, we're actually doing something pretty cool. We're going to Pokagon, but we're actually meeting with another group from Ball State. They're bringing some international students, not students. No, I'm not sure if there's Canadians, but if there is, we're gonna have a party. Yeah, so they're bringing up their international students and also some people from their campus ministry. So we're gonna meet at CCH at about 10:15-ish. Hoping to get there around 10:30. So if you're looking to do some tobogganing, bring $3 per hour you want to toboggan. So if you want to go for $2, you need 2 hours. You need $6. And then I'm hoping afterwards we can get our fantastic van drivers at CCH to take us to Great Lakes for some coffee to warm up. So yeah, if you want to come, CCH around 10:15, and yeah.
All right, and I know we're getting ready to run a little long here, but over the past few weeks we've been doing this thing called the Winter Retreat, Snowdown, right? And so tonight is our finale. We've been promoting the Winter Retreat by playing a series of mini games, and the winning class, we pitted all our classes against each other. The winning class gets a prize at the retreat that will be disclosed next week. So you should sign up for the retreat tonight so you can get your prize, especially if you win. So I need 1 senior, 1 junior, 1 sophomore, 1 freshman. Really, I don't actually need a sophomore because Caleb Herbert's coming up here because he volunteered last week. So I need a senior, I need a junior, and I need a freshman. So. All right, come on, let's speed this along. Any freshmen? Maybe. All right, I've got a junior and I've got a freshman. All right, here we go. All right, I need a senior and a freshman first. This is the first round here. All right, and I need you both to turn around and face the other direction. Do not look at my table. This is important. We're going to play a game called Coffee or Mud. Who's excited about this, right? So we named it Coffee or Mud, and we just it's not actual mud, but we hope it tastes like mud. That's the way it's going to be. Yeah, sorry. I found out that potting soil was toxic, so I decided that probably wasn't a good call. But I'm filling 3 cups with coffee right now. And once I'm done filling these cups, one of them is going to just be coffee, and the other 2 are going to be mud, right? And I can tell you what all was in this, but I don't remember. So if that tells you anything about what kind of stuff is in there. It's not straight caramel, I can tell you that right now. It would be caramel. Does anybody have their weekend update with, or their update? I need 3 of them. Great, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, you guys don't turn around yet. So, I need you can now, a score rundown. Well, this is worth 5 points, and everybody's within 5 points, and the winner takes all. So, this is how it's going to go. It's tournament style. You guys can turn around. You guys are going to play rock, paper, scissors, and the loser is going to choose a cup and drink it. It's going to be best 2 out of 3. You guys know how to play rock, paper, scissors, right? Just wanted to make sure, because we went to the pastor conference and they did not know how to do it well. So, rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Loser drinks. Here we go. Ready? I thought we knew how to do this, guys. All right. Dobbs, you get to choose a cup and drink. It's coffee. There we go. Good pick. Now remember, it's best 2 out of 3. So, seniors 1, freshmen none. Round 2, rock, paper, scissors. I don't know about that. Let's redo that one. Let's redo that one. I'm not into the rock into paper thing. All right. I'm going to step away. Yeah, that's everything. Yeah, you have to finish it. That's how this works. Chugging is fun. It's good. It's good stuff.
What do you use instead of mud?
Let's see. Apple cider vinegar, ground mustard. There's all kinds of stuff in there. Yeah, he has to keep it, well, purely for the sake of not making a mess, he's got to keep it down. All right, we're tied 1-1. It's round 3. Loser drinks. Winner goes on to the next round. Here we go. Good job. All right, Corbin, you've advanced to the winner's bracket. Caleb, Kyle, come join me up here. Face the other direction, please. I'm going to fill these up here real quick. It's so tasty, guys. I'm still facing the other direction, correct? All right, gents, turn around and rock, paper, scissors.
You got this, Caleb. Rock, paper, scissors.
All right, round 2, here we go. Lucky for Kyle, he did end up with the coffee on the second round here, but all right. I need Corbin back up here. Winner takes all, seniors versus sophomores. And this round is going to be best of 5, so. Yeah, sorry about that. I do need 2 more updates. Somebody can volunteer those for me. Oh, man. This is for all the marbles, guys. It's a big deal. While I'm filling these cups, I'll just go ahead and tell you that you guys should come to the Winter Retreat. It's an amazing experience. It really is. It's going to be an awesome weekend. Our worship team is leading worship. You're going to hear from some really cool campus ministers that are sharing really cool messages. My plan was to have my friend Dalen come up here and tell you all about it and how awesome it was. But we're really running short on time here, so we're just going to finish off this coffee about it. And I'm going to tell you that you guys should definitely sign up for the retreat. It's going to be an amazing weekend. We do have scholarships that are available for that. So please don't let money be the reason that you don't go. We would love to offer you a scholarship so that you can go with us. It is really fun. All right, guys, just know that I may or may not have lied about how many things are meant. All right, turn around. Here we go. Rock, paper, scissors, best of 5. Best 3 out of 5. Winner takes all. That's paper. There is no karate in rock, paper, scissors. Corbin's got coffee. That's a good start. It's coffee. You don't have to finish that one. It's the good one. All right, here we go. Round 2. On shoot.
You got this, Caleb.
Man, this is big. That's not the one.
Is it as bad as the sugar?
I'm going to let you get by with half of that one because it's super full. Hey. One more. I just really don't want to be vomited on tonight. It's happened before. I don't want to deal with that again. All right, 1-1. Best 3 out of 5, guys. Yeah, half is fine. Half is good. It's not good. It's really not tasty. But apple cider vinegar is really good for your digestive health. Just thought everybody should know that. Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right. We've got 2-1. Sophomores are ahead. Here we go, round 3, round 4. I can count. Here we go. And that's a win for the sophomores. I'm not going to make you finish all of them, but I'm going to make you finish that one. It's not any better. All right, everybody, you should definitely sign up for the winter retreat. You have registration cards in your updates when you came in tonight. There's also registration cards on the table on your way out. Fill one out on your way out to grab a snack. Don't forget, if you're signed up for the mission trip or you're interested in going on the mission trip, we have a meeting right here afterwards tonight. Stick around for that. Let me pray for us and then we'll get out of here. God, we thank you so much for tonight and the opportunity to spend tonight together and just to dive into your word a little bit and to worship you together. God, we thank you so much for just giving us this family to hang out with. God, we ask your blessing on this week, that you would go with us and encourage us and strengthen us throughout the week. God, thank you so much for all that you do.